Good evening, everyone present here. I am Faraz from IGCP Group. Welcome all the participants on today's webinar. Let's welcome our guest for today's session, none other than Dr. Sania Hasnan. And let me share some of the achievement of her. And she has done MBBS, MD in Hospital Administration, and CEO at Three Perks Hospital Health. And today she is going to speak on a very important topic to further better understanding, that is leadership in healthcare, bridging the gap between clinical and managerial roles. So, no more about this topic. I would like to invite and hand over this session to you. Over to you. The stage is yours. You can proceed from here.
Right. Hi, everybody. Good evening, and thanks for joining in. Um, so I picked this topic around management for the doctors because I've often come across doctors who've requested, a similar session from me. They A lot of doctors do require some help when it comes to running your own clinic, or managing conflict, or managing work within a hospital setup, or if they are leading a unit, managing different people, carrying out different tasks, motivating people, and getting things done the way you would want them. And I'm particularly keen on teaching, and sharing my experience around management with doctors, because I feel doctors would do the most justice when it comes to this field as managers and leaders. We have the right empathy, we have the right skills, we already understand how to work under pressure, we constantly multitask, we have leadership qualities in us, and with a little structure, I think doctors would definitely make great leaders, especially when it comes to running your own clinic, running your own business, or leading a hospital unit, or leading a hospital even. um, with that, let me begin with a couple of things that we will be discussing today. We'll talk about the evolving role of doctors within leadership. We are seeing a lot of doctors in India and across the globe as well, taking up managerial roles by choice. And other than that, even if you don't move completely into management on a day-to-day basis, you are constantly leading a team, making critical decisions, managing a lot of day-to-day tasks with people who are reporting to you, or people who are your colleagues, or people you may be reporting to, and so on. And that's why the importance of leadership skills in clinical and operational settings become important. And we'll talk about some practical skills and strategies to achieve that. Now, leadership, why are doctors natural leaders? You see, you have constantly worked in a high pressure environment, taking decisions, whether it's the emergency department with a mass casualty. You're quick at decision making, you are quick at triaging, you understand, when to pick up the more important things, when to park the less important things. And that's what management is. It is all about prioritizing your work, right? When you look at learning any managerial skills, some of the things that I would always tell doctors is, you know go online, and you find a lot of interesting tools that you can use to structure your work. For example, let's say, if you have to, if there are 10 things that you're working with in a clinic, for and one of my favorite tools is called is a 3 by 3 matrix of how frequently a certain incident happens in a hospital, and what is its impact on patients. So, to give you an example of this, let's say, wrong medication given to a wrong patient. Now, this event can happen very frequently if we don't have guardrails in place to prevent it. Now, anything that can happen frequently, and if this does happen, in that case, we all understand that there will be an adverse impact on the patient. So something that has a high frequency and high impact on patient will be put in a, let's say, a high category, and you will want to track these yourself. You will want to work towards creating guardrails, processes, automation, etc., to prevent these kind of problems from happening. Now, let's say another problem that comes is, a patient's given, they've asked for a certain food that they want to eat because they like it, and the same thing wasn't available and something else was given. Again, probably the frequency high because the store is not being managed well, or the kitchen doesn't have everything available all the time. But what's the impact on the patient? There isn't. I mean, if they don't have any allergies, or it's just about their taste, or choice, then it's not a severe impact on the patient. And that you would park into a lower category, and you may not need to address it right now. You would want somebody in your, you can delegate that work to somebody in your team to address these things, and so on. So that is how I would always put a prioritization to all the things that that all the processes that we are driving, all the things that can go wrong, and what is the impact it has on our patients, on, and it's not just about patients, what is the impact it has on business. Anything that is legal, regulatory, can shut down businesses, so they become high impact. Anything that drives patients away is has an impact on the business, on the revenue, that would also be high. And those would be things that anybody who's leading the team, or anybody senior, or if you have a manager working closely with you who can take care of these things, then they would become high priority for you and your managing team, and you wouldn't want to delegate these responsibilities to others. Anything that's low impact, unhappy with the color of the curtain, or the housekeeping gets a little delayed, or the food is not to their liking, the taste is not good, all of these things, or um, um, this kind of a matrix that, or this kind of a prioritization is not just done in the context of patient care or patient safety. Of course, that is one of the most important areas for us. But also, for example, let's say um, inventory management, right? That's again another piece that I and of course, as we have further sessions, I'm happy to pick up some of these topics in detail, and run you through how we look at inventory management, so that you're never running out of things when you need to prescribe, or you have a good matrix in place, and you're looking at patients safety at all times. Now let's take an example of inventory management. I'll just give you one example. What we would do is we call this a VET analysis. VET, that is V for vital, E for essential, and D for desirable. There are multiple different um, tools that can be used for inventory management, but this one's the easiest, and that's and it's simple, and that's why I'm talking to you about this. What we do is, when you have a list of inventory, you could have thousands of medicines and different medical products in it, and you can't always track everything. There's only limited bandwidth. As a doctor, you have a lot of other things to do. So how do you manage a large inventory of things yourself? Well, you prioritize those across vital, essential, and desirable. So you know that there are certain drugs that are vital for running the business. For example, if you're running a hospital setup, all your emergency drugs become vital. Any medicine where, let's ask yourself, can I run the hospital or my clinic even for a day without these drugs? If the answer is no, then that becomes your vital medicines. Like, if it is not available tomorrow, you won't be able to finish your work tomorrow. There'll be a patient impact. You have adrenaline missing, or you have atropine missing, and so on. So those would be your vital drugs. The next category would be essential drugs. Now you ask yourself that, okay, what happens if I don't have these drugs? Can I, of course, it will impact business, but I can still run. For example, some antibiotic not missing. If it's not available today, it can be made available tomorrow. And drugs of that kind, you have omeprazole, you have these drugs that can be bought off the market as well. Those kind of drugs are essential. You would want them to be available so that it doesn't affect your day-to-day work, but it is not vital where you can't run the place even for an hour without it, and that becomes your essential category of drugs. And the last would be desirable category. These could be some creams, some topical injection sorry, topical gels, etc. Or depends on, again, it depends on the setup. And that's why, as a team, based on what field or what area you're working on, you with your team will decide what vital is for you, what essential is for you, and what desirable is for you. In case of a dermatology center, these creams that are probably desirable in another hospital setting would become essential for them. So this is subjective, which is fine. Health, management is a lot of subjectivity, but as long as you decide as a team and you assign a label to each of these drugs or inventory items as vital, essential, and desirable, then what you can do is anything that's vital is something that you will be looking at every day. You will probably be keeping a track of it on your own. You will make sure that there are and that what will happen is, in a list of hundreds or thousands of medicine, now you're only looking at the top 10% or 20% of the products. You're not managing the whole inventory, because that's not humanly possible. You can't be looking at the whole inventory every day, saying, hey, is this over, do I need to order, and so on. So you can constantly yourself be looking at vital products over there. Essential can be somebody who's your reporting manager, or a reporting team member. They can be looking at it. And desirable is something that their reporting manager, or sorry, reporting member can be looking at, and it can be delegated further. Vital would be something, again, something you would decide you will probably want to look at it every day, or you want to look at it every 2 days. Essential will be something you're looking at once a week or once in 10 days. And desirable is something you're looking at it on monthly basis. And if you feel, of course, these things, some of the, you're still struggling, then you can always switch these across, that okay, you understand that this is vital for you and this is essential for you. But like I said, I wanted to discuss some of these tools, these techniques available. They're very easily available on the internet. All you have to do is go, and I encourage doctors to go and search the net for things, because it has a vast spread of information available. You don't always have to go through a course. A lot of doctors do ask me, do I need to do a course, do I need to do a management course or a certificate course? Nice if you would do it, but you don't really need to do it. You already have a lot of managerial and leadership skills. If you get used to picking up the right kind of tools from the internet, and are able to apply that in your day-to-day work, I think that's all that's needed. And of course, the more you do it, the more practice you have, and you keep getting better at it. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at a few other core management skills. For example, time management, extremely important in a hospital setting. Financial management is also important, unless you're working in a government setup. Even then, financial management is important, but in a private sector, which is the case across most hospitals, you will also have financial responsibility towards your organization. If you're running your clinic, then you own the P&L of your clinic. Then team management, because you're trying to get a lot of work done, both by people who are reporting to you, your colleagues, and also people you may be reporting to. So we'll talk about that. And inventory management, which is something I just discussed with you. Now, when it comes to time management, again, I will constantly reinforce the use of tools, because I use them a lot and they make things easy for me. With time, of course, I don't need to use them. I'm so used to managing my time. But when I train people on their time management, sometimes I see, I feel these tools really help. So if you just go online and look at a time management tool, there'll be multiple different tools available. Pick and choose what you like. One of the tools that I like to use is where, again, it's a 2 by 2 table. I personally love using these kind of tables, the 2 by 2 or a 3 by 3 table, where you can categorize important and unimportant things based on the urgency and the impact. So now this is what we will look at. If a task is urgent and it important, so let's say urgent and important. If it is urgent, that means it needs to be done now, and it's important, that means only you have the skill to do it. Nobody else has the skill to do it. And if it is not done, it'll have a business impact. Now that becomes urgent and important. So you park that here. Not everything can be urgent and important. Now, what could be the other category? Something that's not urgent but still important. You park some time for it, so that you do it later. You don't pick that up first. You pick that up maybe in the second half of the day, or you plan it out that I will do that tomorrow, and so on. But it has to be done by you, because it's important that nobody else has the skill to do it. Then comes a category which is unimportant yet urgent. What would you do in that case? It needs to be done now, but you're not the only one who needs to do it. You should immediately be able to delegate that work, so that somebody else picks it up, and you're not a blocker and you're not delaying it. you know what we tend to do is, especially when we sometimes struggle with time management, is we try to do everything all at once, and that's not possible. And that's why this kind of a categorization is very helpful. And anything that's not urgent and not important, ask yourself, is this even needed? Can I delete this work from my list, or of course give it away. But try to keep yourselves away from anything that's not important and not urgent. That is a category that's absolutely wasting your time. Let's take some examples, maybe. So something that's urgent and important, something in clinical, for example. um, let's say, you have a consultation to take. There's a patient who's unwell, and they're here, so all consultations that come, that you would by default park them in your urgent and important category. You have emails, right? There are patients reaching out to you for their report, and they wouldn't wait. They'll go online and give a rating, or they'll get apprehensive about if their report hasn't come on time, and so on. Now you have to respond back to all those emails telling them everything's fine. Now that is also urgent, but it's not important for you to do it, right? You can upskill somebody, you can delegate that work to somebody to do that on your behalf. You can create templates on how they can fill up these things. Constantly train, have somebody who's like your apprentice, who can shadow you, learn a few things, and be able to pick these things and do it on your behalf. So that those would be examples of urgent tasks that are not important. It doesn't rely completely on your skills. You can train people and get them to do. Then comes things like that are not urgent and important, right? For example, let's say, all the discharges that you have to make. So you plan a time that, okay, I'm never going to start my days with discharges every day. It's a waste of my time. I have the OPD in the morning. I have to take rounds in the morning, but I also have to do discharges. So I'm going to park, let's say, time. Okay, every day from 2 to 3, I will plan all the discharges for the next day. I'm going to write up those templates, or probably end of the day, before you wind up, between 4 and 5, or 5 and 6 o'clock. This 1 hour is parked for me to just work on all the discharges for the next day. I keep the template ready so that when it comes, it doesn't come back into my urgent important bucket. It stays there. Somebody else can, I'll tell them, okay, add these 3 things, or they can just call you, take some input, and send it out, and they're not completely dependent on you. But when a discharge is due, it does become urgent. But if you are planning it, and you've prepared your discharges the day before, you've actually saved yourself a lot of time and hassle. And any kind of paperwork, etc., that you feel you don't need to be looking at directly into, would become not urgent, not important. Delegate people to people, and keep yourselves away. Your time is very important. You come with a lot of skill, of patient care, and leadership, management, etc. Your time is important, and that's why it's very important that you use it, you utilize it wisely. One of the things I do is, of course, when you're into management, you're looking at a lot of different things. And every day I go back home, when I start my work the next day, I have about 20 emails that are in my inbox. I almost never start my day with emails. That means that I'm literally, my day is running how others want it to run, right? I'm responding back to others constantly, and that's not how I want to start my day ever. I come into office, I usually plan my day a night before. But a lot of people, they come into office and they plan the day in the first half an hour on, these are few priorities for me. I write it down and I stick to my priorities. And if I decide to move something to the next day, I don't pick it up today. And creating a plan for the day and sticking to the plan is extremely important. It's also very fulfilling when you can tick off everything, that, okay, you know what, today was a fruitful day, I've got all of these things done. Coming to the next point, which is financial management. Again, this is becoming an important area for doctors to know. How do you create a budget? How do you allocate these resources? Um, this We tend to find these topics boring. I mean, I used to always run away from it, but the reality is that, if you're running your own clinic, you need to understand these. And if you're heading a department, you will be responsible for the P&L, profit and loss, of the department, or a hospital even. In those case, simple things that, because this is a 1 hour session and I won't be able to pick up all these topics in detail. You can always read up about what, gross revenue is, what your net revenue is, what EBITDA is, and these things. There's enough literature available. I'm happy to take a session if needed, just to give a basic overview on how we look at these statements, how we look at a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, or a cash flow statement, and so on. Just a very basic understanding. You don't have to learn financial management skills, or you don't have to, be an expert in that. But when you look at any of the financial statements, just an understanding of what it's trying to tell you and what are the few important things that you can take away from there is something that we can pick up in one of our sessions. The next very important piece is team management, because and that's again another area where I do have doctors reaching out to me, and they do struggle, saying that the team's not motivated enough, or they aren't doing all the right things, they're shying away from their work, they don't come into office on time, they take leave, and they won't tell you well on time, they'll tell you in the morning I'm unwell, and they won't turn up and things like that. How do you manage those things, right? Team management, so again, there's no black and white into how you manage anything in healthcare. You can pick and choose your own management style, you can pick and choose your own leadership style. I'm going to tell you how I manage my team, and you can do it differently. When I'm looking at managing my team, I personally keep a very nurturing kind of an environment where people feel that they want to come into work, they feel that they are being looked after, they understand that I care about their personal and professional growth. I'm involved, I listen to them, I understand how their personal life is going, so that we're close to each other, they can confide in me and so on, and I constantly work towards their professional growth, whether they're looking at a new course that they want to do, they want to shadow somebody and learn, and so on. So that creating a wonderful bonhomie between the teams is something that's very important to me. um, I'll give you an example. Somebody asked me that their team just calls up in the morning and says, hey, I'm unwell, and they don't turn up, and then you're struggling calling up here and there looking for a replacement, and they feel that this, they're very sure that they do this because they take the day off and they go and do some freelance work elsewhere where they make more money. Now, when you know that this is a problem, and constantly getting after somebody or scolding them, or they said, we had a disciplinary meeting to pull people up. That's not the way. It's not going to help. The more disciplinary meetings you have, and the more stricter you get with people around all of this, the more they will rebel, and you won't be able to, get the most out of people. If somebody feels the need to do freelance work, they feel that their current pay is not enough, or they want to do extra. Why not? Let them, right? They have their allocated number of leaves in a month or in a year, and if so, and at the end of the day, everybody is working because they want to grow professionally, they want to earn money, they want to do well, and so on. So we can't stop them from doing that, right? Eventually they'll leave you if you do that. So you what I prefer doing is taking the problem head on. I would like to speak to them and say, yeah, hey, you know what, I understand you do freelance work and that's why you take leave, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do it. All of you must be doing that, or for whatever reason, right? But between the all of you, why don't you create your own rosters? You decide who's coming in when. I don't have to run the roster for you. As long as there's somebody available between you guys, I'm happy for you to take leave, whether it's for personal reason, whether it's extra leave, whether you're going on a holiday even, right? I'm not going to stop you. This is why people work. They want to have a great personal life. So go ahead and do it, but don't let work affect. And I've tried this across all the businesses I have run. I've struggled with roster making, and people constantly fighting with me saying, hey, I don't want to come on this day, or this one wants to do this. The moment you delegate roster making to a team, as a team they are deciding, I think people do very well. You would have seen yourself, right, when you were doing internships or when you're working in a hospital setup. You go up to a colleague and say, hey, you know what, I want the Monday off, can you do this for me? And they say, okay, cool, I'll do Monday for you, can you do a Thursday for me? And it's as easy as that. Then why not use the same thing for all the other members in the organization? Why are we constantly getting after them and deciding when they can come in and when they can go out? If you have the flexibility of deciding a few things, then so should others. And that motivates them. They feel they're responsible for their own time. They have a sense of responsibility. There's nobody else who's running after them and deciding things for them. And I've always seen, across all the places I've worked, the moment I let people decide, they do a much better job than when I decide for them and tell them what to do. And that's just one of the ways I manage the team. But there are, of course, there are a lot of different ways of doing things. I've already run you through inventory management, so we'll skip that piece. Another area in healthcare, because there's so much happening, there are so many different moving pieces. Communication becomes very important, especially when you're working with multidisciplinary teams. Let's say there's a surgeon, there's an anesthetist, there's a you'd have the respiratory team, you have the pediatric team, nursing team, there's housekeeping, and the management team is also involved, etc. So you always have a lot of teams working. Effective communication is very important. Never assume people will know. The moment you assume, you're wrong. Never assume that people know, and you don't call things out when you are trying to relay any information, or you are trying to give them any direction or instruction. Every instruction needs to be absolutely holistic, should have all elements of what you're trying to tell them. For example, let's say you're working in your own department, and there are certain things you're aware of because you're involved day to day, but the management team wouldn't be, or the anesthesia team or the surgery team or any other team wouldn't be aware of those things. You would assume that they know it because you're in and out, and it's second nature to you. And it and you're working with it every day, so you're well aware, and you'd be like, oh, how is it that they wouldn't know? Maybe they should know, maybe they should, but like I said, you want to have control over things, then never leave it on others to assume and to guess themselves, or say, hey, no, I expected you to know that. No, that's not how management works, that's not how leadership works. We don't create any wrong expectations. All your processes should always be foolproof, and so should your communication. Every time you're asking for tasks to do, you should ensure that you've given all the information to teams, you've documented it. In healthcare, we say what's not written is not done, so everything should ideally be documented. You can document it over an email, or a message, whatever it is, but it should be written down somewhere or on a piece of paper. And like I said, these things come naturally to doctors, right? We are constantly using SBAR. Why do we use SBAR every time? Situation, background, assessment, uh, a report. Right now, in an SBAR communication, while you're talking to the same doctor or the same nurse every day, you're talking about the same patient, but then every time they say, start with SBAR, that's because never assume. Right, never assume that this is understood and they know this. You always should take up an end-to-end communication across every thing. And because we're doing this in patient care on a day-to-day basis, we should also be looking at this when it comes to managing teams, managing people, delegating work, and so on. Active listening, building rapport with your colleagues and patients is something I explained to you. I'm usually very involved with my team. I understand, if somebody's daughter is unwell, I'll always make sure I ask how they are doing. If they've taken the day off to because it's their anniversary, or it's their friend's birthday, I'll ask, how did the evening go, what did you do, and so on. I would tell them what I did in the evening, so that it's not so formal that they're scared of asking you, they're scared of coming up to you. You seem more approachable. Now this depends, right? Depends on, if you're handling a team directly, then you would definitely want to be more approachable. If you're a skip manager, then you wouldn't want to get too involved in people's day to day because you have other things to do. So it depends on where you are. Do you have a direct team reporting to you? That team you should be taking care of, you should be involved with them, never throw them under the bus, support them, um, um, train them constantly, allow them to take some decisions, but own the outcome. When you delegate work to people, you have delegated the responsibility of doing the work, which based on how you have equipped them to do the work, there would be a scope of error or not. But when you're delegating work, the ownership of the outcome remains with you. And you can't say, hey, you know what, you did this and this is your fault. And no, if they made a mistake or they didn't do something right, that means we should look internally and understand, did I equip them, did I set them up for success, or did I set them up for failure? I constantly ask this question to myself whenever I delegate work. Do they have all the resources to do what I'm asking them to do. For example, if I'm asking somebody to pick up a new project, I told you about the VED analysis. Let's say I've delegated this to my reporting staff, and I tell them, can you reach out to other doctors, put them in a meeting, brainstorm, and assign V, E, and D across all the inventories. And let me know what I need to do. Now I've given this task to my team, and my question is, do they understand what VED is? Have I trained them? Do they have the list of all the medicines? Have I made sure they have it? Can they reach out to the other team? Will the team be made available, or will they keep running away, because there are other doctors, and my manager doesn't have the authority to catch all of them and put them in a room? That tends to happen. That means the email should come from me. I should send an email to all the departments saying that, hey, this is important, and so and so person will reach out to you. Please ensure that you support them, right? That kind of have I equipped them so that they're able to reach out to the team? um, Also, multiple people are doing multiple things. I know they're swamped with work. Have I given them the time to do it, right? Am I sure that they will be able to pull out 2 hours in a day to put some document together, another maybe 3 hours in a day to in that week to have the meeting, reach out to people, decide whatever time that is needed. I'm just giving an example. Have I given them the resources in terms of time, in terms of equipping them so that other people listen to them, and so on? This is just a brief example, but I always list down everything possible that is needed for somebody to do a task. And have I enabled them to do their best? If I haven't, then I've set somebody up for failure. It'll be disappointing for them, and it'll be disappointing for you. So, delegation is a very important thing. A lot of us learn delegation with time. I think a simple question to ask yourself is, have I set the person up for failure or success? And if the answer is not for success, then we need to look at what is missing and equip them to do their work better. Another thing that we constantly look at in healthcare is decision making, especially under pressure. There are emergencies, there are different surgeries, there are lots of consultations, the workload is very, very high, and so on. We are constantly triaging, we are constantly making that decision. Sometimes just sit and think, okay, how am I doing this? How are you deciding who's more important, who's less important, what's more important, and the same knowledge should be passed to your team. Please understand that, especially folks who are working for you or with you in management or administration in a hospital or a clinic setting, they do not come from a medical background. They do not understand the high stakes that we work with. They do not understand what is urgent, not urgent, what will create a poor patient impact or a poor business impact, and so on. They wouldn't. These are things we assume that they would know, because it's second nature to us. It isn't for them. So I put in a lot of effort into training my team. Always, even on the go, when I'm talking to them, I will constantly tell them, teach them stuff about healthcare. I'll teach them about medicines. I'll teach them about patient care. I'll give them examples of things that have happened in my past when I would be involved in clinical practice, and so on. The more you talk to them, the more you enlighten them, educate them about healthcare. They understand what high stake means. They understand what urgent means. They would also be able to take decisions themselves. Otherwise, what will happen is every decision will come to you. And you would become a blocker for things, because there's only one of you, right? And there are 101 tasks going on. So that learning from mistakes and implementing corrective action, that's again another thing I quite like to do. We don't try, we definitely keep an environment where people are not afraid. We don't fly off the handle, we don't constantly scold people. If mistakes are made and errors are made, and it's never a people problem. It isn't, because you can replace the person today, because they've made mistakes, but the next person will come and make the same mistakes. Any mistake, any errors that happen is almost always a process problem. You don't have the right processes, the right guardrails in place. People should be able to come and tell you, you know what, oops, I made this mistake. Can we figure something out so this doesn't happen again? Because if I did it, somebody else could also do it, right? And that's how open we keep communication here. If somebody can easily come up and say, you know what, I did something wrong, and I made a mistake, I wasn't paying attention. And these things happen, right? You can't perform 100% every single day at work. None of us are, humanly we can't. So There are times where you will be distracted for whatever reason, or you'll be tired because you've had long duties, and that's where errors happen, and that's okay. It's okay for us to make mistakes. It's not okay for mistakes to have patient impact. So that's what I said in the beginning of this presentation when I talked about things that have high frequency of error and high impact. Let's look at that. Create guardrails constantly. If there are errors being made, let's understand why that happened. Okay, you were distracted, great. So, what did you do? Take an example of Lassa drugs, right? Why are Lassa drugs managed in a certain way? They are labeled with red and yellow color. Lassa drugs are look-alike, sound-alike drugs. You tend to give the wrong drug to the wrong patient, and so on, because they look alike also, and they sound alike as well. So they're usually kept diagonally opposite, so that even while when you're distracted, you know that, okay, you're not constantly not picking it up from the same place. Two drugs lying next to each other, if you're distracted or you're tired, you will end up picking the wrong drug, versus one is kept here and the other is kept here. You will be a little more conscious about what you do. Another thing is for high alert drugs, right? Why are they in double lock? It's for no other reason. It's not because you're keeping it away from somebody. It is because every day, you're working, and you tend to work in autopilot mode. Sometimes, you're not paying attention because it's just so you're so used to it. So you're constantly going to a certain shelf and picking up a drug and giving, and you're doing that all the time. um, but when it comes to high load drug, okay, you go to the shelf and then you realize, oh, it's locked. That breaks the autopilot mode that you're in, because now suddenly, that same routine is broken of what you're doing. So now you got your attention back. And that's why these things are put in place, right? To pull somebody out of autocorrect mode, or autopilot mode, or to prevent errors, etc. And when you understand, and you look at the reality of how people work, right? That, okay, people can get tired, people can be distracted, people can be uninterested also sometimes, and that's, all of these things happen. What are the things, processes, guardrails, etc., that you can implement to prevent these from happening? Leading change in healthcare, again, another very interesting area. Also, it's a tricky area. When you're driving innovation, bringing in a new process, there's always a lot of resistance, because especially, let's say, if a new software comes in and everybody is absolutely annoyed, because now they have to learn a new software, and they almost never like it. In healthcare, I've always felt one of the most hated part of working is all the administrative work and the software, especially. They're We always feel that they're not good enough, and they waste our time more than they help us. That's what I have always seen people say. But I've worked on both sides. I've used the software as a doctor, and disliked it, of course, a lot of times. I've also been on the other side where I've built the software for different hospitals and clinics, and I understand now that it isn't just the software, right? The problem again that comes here is change management. If we do not, if a new software is being introduced, right, and the management hasn't given enough time for training, because the hospital is running, every nurse is busy, every doctor is busy, on the go they expect you to start using a new software. And when I say they, you could be them, right? You could be the hospital management, you could be leading it, right? And you wouldn't want to do the same thing. If you want a new software implemented and you want everybody to use it properly, one, you should look at the software yourself, see if it is fit for purpose. You should understand and have a champion who understands the software, who understands it better than everybody else. Park time for training people so that they're able to learn, right? You can't expect a nurse who's got a 10-hour shift or 8-hour shift, and she's constantly working, and you've not given her a break, and expect her to learn a software, or him expect him to learn a software. Have you given them the time? Have you given them the right training? Have you let them practice for a while, and so on? So reducing resistance to change will come when you equip people to endure the change that's coming, and you constantly reinforce, right? Make short wins, give examples, you yourself, that, oh, you know what, this is what I did with the software, and it turned out, made my work very easy. So you always exhibit short wins when you try to make a change. uh, Change management typically is a 7-step process, again, very detailed. I don't want to go into that in this particular session. It's beyond the scope all of these topics, I mean, we could spend a few hours, or at least an hour, going over these. But again, something, you can just Google next time when you see, okay, everybody's resisting to change, or I want to bring in a new process. Will people agree, not agree? Um, you can Google out different steps into change management and go through that. Or there's an interesting book that I had read, which is called the iceberg is melting. Story of how a bunch of penguins were living on an iceberg, and one penguin comes and says, the iceberg is melting, and he or she suggested that we move to a new iceberg, and there was a lot of resistance. Nobody wanted to, and she knew that this iceberg will melt and we'll all get killed. So it's a short book, very simple, easy read, where it talks about how this little penguin got everybody to move to a new iceberg by first creating a sense of urgency that, okay, this is required, otherwise we'll be in trouble. Getting some stakeholders on his side, for example, people who are more respected. So there was the village senior, and bunch of folks. For example, you can have the management on your side, you can have the heads of the department on your side, etc., who are advocate of this. So you build that team, that yes, this is important, we are going to do this, we like it. Show them a vision of what is coming up, how is that better, right? Then gradually bring in the change, make some small wins, show how this has impacted, and then constantly reinforce, right? Handhold people for a period of, it could be depending on what the process changes or the software is. You could be hand holding them for a period of 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, depends on the intricacy, till that things are going to run without your intervention. The moment you feel that no, it'll again fall flat, that means your work is not completed. So it's an interesting read that you all can go through. um, the next piece is technology, something that we are constantly dabbling with. And there's AI, there's new technology coming in. I love using different technologies. There's so much available. There are nice, interesting tools available. um, I always feel if there's technology available, we should leverage it and not run away from it. So as doctors, that's something I would always request all of you to do. The different software available and so on. Anything that enhances decision making. Now, when I say decision making, of course, while there's AI and there's tools available to on clinical decision making also, but then the responsibility is yours, and always use it with a pinch of salt. Be careful before it goes to the patient and creates an impact. It'll help you, of course, it'll make your work easy, but then the response, it does make mistakes, and we are all well aware of errors that AI or technology makes. So being aware of that and working with it, I think makes work a lot easier. And of course, I use a lot of tools to reduce administrative work. Let's start with the simple tasks that that are repetitive, that can easily be taken away by somebody else. Calendar management tools are there, or inventory management tools are there, stock management, scheduling tools are available, right? Instead of me having to do these things on my own, I use different tools available. And constantly stay up to date with digital innovation. There's so much happening around you. We are in such a dynamic environment right now. Things haven't changed at this pace. I mean, when we were much younger versus the way they're changing now. Every few weeks you have some new technology coming up. So yeah, I agree, it's a little tricky, but it's the need. It's the need, right? You are in a very dynamic environment, you want to stay relevant, you want to stay up to date. I think it's nice that you constantly read up, see what's different technology available, what others are doing, or just talk to people across, who can tell you about different things that they're using. There's new robotics that comes in. There's AI in decision making that comes in. There are home test kits with AI in it that have better specificity and sensitivity, to picking up and making the right diagnosis. The other day, I was working with a doctor on capsule endoscopy, and how capsule endoscopy was used only for small bowel earlier because of the way the imaging worked, but now it's also used for colon, and gradually it'll be used for a lot of other things. I would love to I'm looking at introducing that in my in our health practice as well. So we constantly look at different new innovations and see how that can impact. The doctor I was talking to did a research where they were able to prevent colonoscopy in 70% of the patients. So I know that this the research had a good outcome. I know this is a useful, I did the costing for this, and I'm well convinced that I should be bringing this into my business, and I will do that. So, and this is just one example. Similarly, I come across a lot of different innovative tools, for patient monitoring, for sending out prescriptions and so on, and I constantly try and use that. There's a software called it's a software that we use for medical transcription. It records the consultation and then translates it in creates a transcript, and then if I am able to create a template on how I want this transcript to look, it actually, the AI puts that together and makes a brilliant document for me. And the more I use it, the more AI develops, and I know now it understands me better, and it I'm able to get better responses from it. You always struggle with any of the AI tools in the beginning because they come with little knowledge about how you work, but the more and more you work with it, one, the tool will start understanding, or what's expected out of it. Number two, you will get better at giving it the right prompts. What's important with AI using, it could be chat GPT, it could be any of these tools, unless you use it very regularly, you will not understand what are the right questions to ask, or what are the right information you need to give it, so that you can get exactly what you want. So the first time I started using it, I would ask, okay, can you make this for me, and it'll give me something far from what I really expected. Then I would give it an example of, okay, I'm expecting these two things, these are my problem statement, this is what I have done so far, this is what I know, this is what I'm looking at now, can you make something for me? So I try to give it as much information as I can. The more I equip it, and then I keep tweaking my prompt, till I get the right thing. And now I know I'm able to give it, excellent prompts, and get something out of it, and it's a very useful tool for me. Reduces my time on doing a lot of other paperwork, or writing up things that could take me a few hours, and it does it in a few seconds for me. uh, there's been a learning curve, but like I said, with every tool technology, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but don't hesitate from using it. um, the other thing is, of course, like doctors do ask me, should they do training programs? Sure, go ahead, do training programs. They are, they're nice, but you can, I always feel that the doctors are well equipped. They already understand leadership skills, they understand managerial skills. We tend to shy away from this, but we are better equipped than a lot of others to manage and lead. Just with a little structure, I think doctors definitely make excellent leaders and managers. uh, Another thing that I do introduce in my workplace is role playing scenarios, for decision making, group exercises, etc. Give them case studies. The more there is a reality to what people are doing in healthcare, because like I said, people aren't from a healthcare background. The more you can, they are better equipped to do their work. Role playing as, somebody's a patient, somebody's a nurse. What would you say? What would you do? Or give them a case study on things, real world. That gives them an understanding versus just a didactic lecture, right? Doesn't add much value. So yeah, I'm not going to keep you very long, but like I said, doctors being in leadership roles, and having managerial skills is critical for modern medicine. Medicine, we're in a space where, traditional medicine and there's modern medicine, and you're in between all of that, and there's, it's a dynamic changing environment where there's technology, etc. New diseases coming in, but all said and done, doctors are the most equipped. You know the system more than anybody else. It is second nature, and with a little help, doctors would be better leaders in this field. I've always felt, than anybody else. I'm a big advocate of doctors being, in taking up the leadership roles in healthcare, because of the empathy that we come with, but the understanding of what patients want, the understanding of the intricacies, of, and of course, by nature of studying for so many years, your critical decision making is, is at its peak. So yeah, it's definitely a good space for doctors to be in. Helps them with their clinical work as well. Otherwise, you're too overwhelmed by any managerial work around you. So if more you can manage your team, your time, resolve conflicts, communicate better, manage your inventory, understand, what you delegate, what you do yourself, just structure a few things, you'll be able to make things a lot easier for yourselves. Right. So that's everything from me. Happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you so much for your valuable time and sharing your very important knowledge on this topic. I definitely think this will help all the participants who have joined this session. Like I can see we have received some questions. With all your permission, shall we take these questions?
Sure, please go ahead.
The first question I can see is from Dr. Subramaniam. He's asking what leadership traits are the most essential for doctors transitioning into administrative roles.
That's a very nice question. So when I was studying, I studied a lot of different leadership styles and leadership traits. Um, I don't want to impose any one kind of leadership trait. Again, something that I would like you to explore. There's plenty of different options available. I'll tell you what I use personally, and but that's me, and you can have a different leadership style. Some leaders, um, there's one thing, there are different, like I said, there are different types of leaders. My leadership style is typically, I like what you call the level 5 leadership, or the transformational leadership. These are two, and I kind of mix and match different leadership styles, to bring that into mind, where I work in a manner where you know um, I don't want limelight. I don't want to be known as the person who's driving everything. I'm not looking for people to tell me, oh, you've done a good job, etc. I don't care for it. For me, what's important is my team doing well? Do they feel that they're taken care of? Right, I have feel that for me, creating a very nurturing environment. Like, imagine we get 24 hours in a day. We sleep 8 hours probably. Some of us don't. That gives us 16 hours, out of which 8 hours you're at work and 8 hours you're at home. One third of your life, or half your awake hours, is going into workplace. It needs to be a good environment to come into. If people look forward to coming into work, if people feel that they're taken care of, they're heard, if people feel that they can decide things on their own, that's a place where I feel people will deliver better. There are leaders who feel people inherently don't like to work, and we need to wield the stick and tell them, and we need to be strict. That's again a different leadership style. There is no right or wrong leadership style. It all depends on the situation. If, for example, if an organization is failing and it's not doing well, and there's an urgency to fix things, you will get a leader who's probably a taskmaster, who will get everybody together, be very strict about things, etc., and prevent the organization from failing or collapsing. But the moment everything goes back to normal, etc., those kind of leaders don't do well in a peaceful environment, because they're constantly stressing people out, and they're constantly screaming, shouting, etc., right? And that's why I said the leadership styles are different. You should try to pick up your own leadership style. For me, my leadership style is where I try to make sure that people look forward to coming in, they have decision making at their end. I'm constantly involved in day-to-day work. I feel, if unless I'm aware of things, I understand the process, I understand the job role, I can't expect others to do it. So that level of involvement is needed. As a leader, I always ensure that I put in more effort. I'm available if my team is working on a Saturday or a Sunday, and if they have a question, I am there to answer. It can't be that I tell people to work at odd hours, and I'm unavailable to take a call, etc. You have to be there, show up for your team at all times. They should be able to look up to you as somebody who's on their side to support them in their work. I always tell them that, look, you're the guys who are doing all the work, right? I'm here to support you. That's my job. And that's what I constantly do. you know what can I do to help you? And I don't direct them. And it's just small things, like how you communicate. Instead of telling them, hey, can you do this, hey, do this, do that, I don't say that. I say, hey, you know what, this looks like a good idea. What do you think about it? Do you think we should do it? It looks like they are deciding, right? They are giving inputs, and sometimes the inputs will be right, sometimes the inputs wouldn't be right. But it shouldn't always be directional, where I'm telling you what to do. you know if you're working towards training and upskilling people, then let them be able to decide. Have that trust in them that they can, and just handhold them, help them maneuver through day to day, constantly train, and so on. So that's how I do things.
It's really great. Like everybody, the way we have explained things, I think that Everybody will wants manager like you only. The way you explain your like leadership quality, like it's is very amazing, and I hope that it will help all the audience who are listening out there. And one of the most important question I can see, like we are moving towards more into the technology, right? So the question come is that like how can like AI or machine learning can help the role in bridging out the gap between clinical and managerial roles? What's your point
Right.
of view on that?
Right, thanks. That's helpful. Um, Again, I like I said, I love using technology. You know, you should be aware of everything that's happening around. When we start using technology, I use a lot of different tools and AI. There's Heidi in a software. There's ChatGPT. There's Bing has one, or Gemini is from Google, and so on. There are lots of these available. I start with using AI and technology across administrative, simple tasks. You know, it's not about getting. You don't have to solve everything all together, right? So I pick up simple tasks, that are repetitive, that are, for example, can you create an email for me? Can you create a presentation for me? Can you and then I give it that information. So anything that's managerial or administrative, can you give me an example of a tool that I can use for time management? Then you give me an example, of a tool that I can use for, XYZ. These are things that I do. I am very careful about using AI in clinical decision making. It does make mistakes. I'll give you an example. For instance, when I was using software for transcription, and a, and then it creates it under the subheadings I would want to. I saw that it made some mistakes where it just saw that somebody's AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, was suboptimal, and just wrote that, okay, she would be incapable of having children. Now, if I hadn't looked at it and that had gone to a patient, one, it would have been very devastating for them. And two, there's wrong information. You can't decide just based on that. And three, somebody would have been really upset about it. So, yeah, I'm usually very careful. I still use it. Did I stop using it? Do I think it's a terrible software? No, I know there's a whole company working behind it, and they'll keep improving the software. So I don't leave it out. I can constantly keep using it. I constantly give feedback to all the softwares that I use, so that I feel that they would improve. But between managerial and clinical roles, as much as managerial administrative roles, you can put use AI tool and technology. I think I do that to save time for me. That's one. I put in the effort to learn these tools and then train the team on ground so that they can do it. But one thing is, I've always seen, this is something I'm also learning with time, but I delegate work, I give things to the team to do. But if I, I stop monitoring it for a while, then it does go bad. So one of the things I've learned is, while you delegate it, you constantly have to watch. When I say constantly, have a weekly catch up and see what's happening. But the moment you leave it for weeks together, it wouldn't get done. So you are still responsible or towards outcome. So to bridge the gap between managerial and leadership, like I said, move all your managerial tasks, using some tools, etc. uh, Understand what are some of the managerial tasks that you have to do yourself. Like I said, high prioritization, high frequency, high impact, etc. Those you keep in your bucket. Always use the 80-20 principle. 80% of the things you should be able to delegate. They're simpler things, they take up a lot of your time, but they're unimportant. 20% is what you will control yourself, and that's something you take care of from managerial. Even clinical work, for example, you can delegate some of the clinical work to your folks. For example, creating a discharge summary. When you know what the template is, right, you've written down some examples, you've trained them enough across, right, you have told them exactly what to. It's a little effort one time sitting and creating the right template. Once you've done that, they'll be able to create that for you. Or tell them that, hey, why don't you use chat gpt? This is the template, you give it. This is the 5 or 6 information you give, you try it yourself, and then get them to do it, and then you check it, right? Because the responsibility is yours, they are your patient. So yeah, there'll be about good 20% of the clinical tasks that you can give away to your team, or you can give away to technology, and the 80% would be with you, and 20% of managerial tasks with you, and 80% can be automated, give it to technology, given to your team. So that's how I tend to do my work.
Thank you so much for taking us deep into the AI and on the on this on the basis of that clinical and manager role. And moving forward, I can see another question from Dr. Tripathi. And he's asking like, what are the key challenges doctors face when stepping into leadership roles, and how can they prepare for them? What's your point of view on that?
Right. Thank you. That's really helpful. It's a lovely question. I think the key challenges that doctors face is one, prioritization of tasks. And that's why ran you through this. We are so swamped with clinical work, and we are constantly trying to do everything all the time. And that's why one of the key things that I see doctors struggling with is prioritization. What should you prioritize? What should you work on? The next thing that I do see doctors struggling with is team management, people not listening. And like I said, and I think Dr. Subramaniam asked the question, what's your leadership style? And that goes translates back to this. Pick a leadership style of yours and manage your team according to resolve constant conflicts, give them, equip them, train them, and so on. So there's time, there's team management. These are few things that I see doctors, even when, like, for example, a doctor asks me who he's always had a clinical background, but then went back to heading his father's hospital, and it's the first time he's a leader, and people didn't like it because he was young, and there were senior doctors who think they know more. I mean, I'm sure they do actually, with years of experience, and then he had to drive things, etc., and there was a lot of resistance in there. So how do you manage something like that, right? And I've had that difficulty myself, as a when I was much younger, and I'm trying to manage doctors who are much senior. They, whether they like it or not. I think I would always, work with, again, the doctors, the decision, understand that if who you're working with, right? If you're working with a doctor, for the doctor, their autonomy is very important. They should be able to decide things, right? They are very highly skilled professionals. You can't tell them what to do. They wouldn't like it, right? So then you need to go to them with in a manner where, you're seeking advice, you're involving them in decision making, right? You're there to support them, etc. So, it depends, right? So understanding who the person in front of you is, right, how skilled and experienced they are, and managing them according to what they expect is something that's important. That is there. Another thing that I put in a lot of effort is to understand more, what motivates everybody. Different things motivate people, and we need to understand what motivates somebody. For somebody, money is a motivator. For somebody, some time free with the family is a motivator. For somebody, growth is a motivator, etc. And you need to understand what motivates people, and then give them that as use that as a leverage to, and make sure that they get it right when they're able to complete tasks for you. So I think it's the general, it's not some one area that I see doctors struggle with. They do struggle with a bunch of things, and these are typical common questions, managing senior, running a hospital where you're young, and you're managing a lot of other senior doctors who've been in the place for many many years, or a senior nurse who now has to report to you will be very unhappy because you're young with 2 years of experience. To manage them, right? Don't take decision making away from them. Don't tell them what to do all the time. How you communicate, keep them involved. Get people on your side. People should always feel you're on, you guys are on the same side, and it's not me telling you what to do. That's not how. So I think that kind of a management skill, and especially our, I'm not saying it works everywhere, but in healthcare, everybody's highly, highly qualified. If you see, doctors are probably the top 10% of the population. Yeah, or maybe even top 5 7% of the population, with when it comes to skills, etc. And so are nurses and a lot of other people with amount of qualification experience. You can't come and tell them, hey, look, do this, right? So it all comes down to how you manage these very very qualified team members.
Thank you so much for answering all the questions. Like, it is all the answer the way you have given. It's so practical. Like, we see in a real life also, like day to day life practice also, these kind of things happens, and you have answered really beautifully, keeping context of that. I hope that it will be going to help all the listeners who are listening to this podcast. And very well explained. And thank you so much.
Thank you everybody, thanks for joining. Take care, have a good evening.
If there is no more question, with all your permission, shall we conclude this session for today?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. Bye
Yeah,
bye, take care.
we would catch you also after some time and in coming time also, like with different topic. Till then, take care of yourself and have a great day. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, take care, bye.
Bye. Same to you.